As expected, we had Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei yesterday issuing a defiant statement slamming U.S. President Donald Trump for backing the protesters, accusing the protesters being on streets to respond to Trump's support, and calling them saboteurs and agents of the enemy, saying that the Islamic Republic will not back down.
Okay. Thank you so much for the update, Soroush Nagadari, on events in Iran. A new video showing the moments before a US immigration agent fatally shot a woman in Minneapolis has emerged. The 47-second footage, obtained by Minnesota-based outlet Alpha News, was filmed by the ICE officer who pulled the trigger. The US Vice President, J.D. Vance, and the White House Press Secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, have shared the video to social media, claiming it proves the agent acted in self-defense. But local officials continue to insist that Renee Good posed no danger. This report now from our correspondent in the United States, Paul Adams.
Emotions still running high on the frigid streets of Minneapolis. Protesters furious over the death of 37-year-old Renee Good. And now another view of how it all unfolded, filmed on his phone by the federal agent identified as Jonathan Ross, who fired the fatal shots.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad.
At this point, Miss Good seems relaxed, but her wife Becca is outside the car confronting Mr. Ross.
When you come talk to us later. That's fine.
Officer Ross continues to circle the car.
You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy.
Other officers order Renee to get out of the car. She briefly reverses before surging forward. Shots ring out. One of the officers shouts abuse as the car accelerates away. The US Vice President says the new video is clear. Many of you have been told this law enforcement officer wasn't hit by a car, J.D. Vance says, wasn't being harassed and murdered an innocent woman. The reality is that his life was endangered and he fired in self-defense. That's not a straightforward claim to make. The latest video, like the videos before it, leaves plenty of ambiguity. It is possible, but not certain, that Renee Good was trying to drive away rather than trying to attack Officer Ross.
It seems pretty obvious.
At the White House, Donald Trump didn't address the latest video, but said professional troublemakers were to blame.
You have agitators, and we will always be protecting ICE, and we're always going to be protecting our Border Patrol and our law enforcement.
Yeah, but there's not enough of you.
Back in Minneapolis, another memorial for Renee Good, her wife releasing a long, emotional statement. We were raising our son to believe that no matter where you come from or what you look like, all of us deserve compassion and kindness, Rebecca wrote. On Wednesday, January the 7th, we stopped to support our neighbors. We had whistles, they had guns. Renee Good's death seems destined to remain the subject of fierce partisan disagreement. The latest video hasn't changed that.
That was Paul Adams reporting. I should let you know the BBC has asked the Homeland Security Department and the White House for comment on that new video that emerged on Friday. You're with Weekend from the BBC World Service.
Well, that's how the BBC reported on it.
Now, the British government says it wants
still
the
way too
country's
much credit to
communications
Trump's lies.
regulator to decide within days what action to take against Elon Musk's X over the use of the site's Grok AI chatbot
Seize
to
the
make
company.
sexualized deep fakes without people's consent. That action might include blocking X altogether
Seize
in the
it.
UK. Now, Grok told
Seize
X
Twitler.
users on Friday that image generation and editing features were now available only to paying subscribers. That, said the UK government, was an insult to victims of sexual abuse. Well, my BBC colleague James Menendez has been speaking to a woman who says her image was sexualized by Grok. She also happens to be Elon Musk's ex-girlfriend and mother to one of his children, Ashley St. Clair. She told him what happened.
This issue started for me, I believe it was 2 days ago now. I received a text from a friend, and when I opened that text, it was a link to Twitter in which a photo of me where I was fully clothed was then undressed and put into a bikini. I immediately responded to Grok saying, I don't consent to this. Please confirm that I don't consent and do not produce any more images. And Grok confirmed that I don't consent and that it wouldn't produce any more. However, Grok continued to produce more and more images. and more explicit images in which I was also getting younger in these photos. People found photos of me at 14 years old that they undressed, put into a bikini. Other photos of me where I had a high neckline as an adult with my son's backpack in the background. I was stripped where I look basically nude, bent over, and many of these still remain up on the platform.
So, how did seeing those images, how did that make you feel?
It's been horrific. And to compound that, after I came out publicly, I've received many more women who reached out to me. The images I've had to see, because apparently this had been happening for about a week before it came to my attention, before I had been the target of this issue. And as of this morning, despite Twitter's claims that they were putting safeguards, I saw a girl that Grok claims is between 10 and 14 years old, undressed by Grok.
And X insists that it takes action against content that is created, illegal content that is created. But your experience suggests that they're not able to keep up with that, or not willing to keep up with that. Which do you think it is?
Not only are they not willing, but it does seem that they've now retaliated for me asking Grok repeatedly to stop undressing me and creating child sexual abuse material of me, because in the last 24 hours, they've removed my check mark and demonetized me completely after I spoke out about this with no explanation given. The only thing I've done is speak out against this issue and asked Grok to stop doing this, because you can't undo abuse.
Did you consider, though, calling Elon
No.
directly? I mean, given how upset you must have been. No, you didn't.
Oh, that's how much she
X has
doesn't want
said
to talk
that
to
now
Elon
only
Musk.
paying
Damn.
subscribers
She's
will
his
have
baby
access
mama.
to this feature. I mean, that's being condemned roundly
He's hung
by
like
the
this.
UK government. When you heard that they were doing that, what did you think?
Well, so now you can continue producing the CSAM material, but now you just have to pay Elon Musk $8 to do it.
So when they repeatedly insist, whenever we try and contact them, other people try and contact them, that they take action against illegal content, including what you say, CSAM, child sexual abuse material. And we've heard this from tech platforms before, that they are intent on taking action, but it doesn't seem to make much difference. How do you, how do you interpret that?
They're not taking enough action.
Right.
This could be stopped with a singular message to an engineer.
I mean, the UK government's asked the regulator potentially to look at taking action, including potentially banning X in this country. Is that the sort of action you'd support? Would you like to see that happen in the US?
I have been one of the biggest free speech advocates, and I have been very outspoken about some of the UK's restrictions on speech in the past, but this is beyond that. It is really not beyond the pale to say, hey, we're going to censor this until you stop undressing children and women. I think that's entirely reasonable.
That was Ashley Sinclair. I should say the BBC did ask X for an interview, but we're told the company weren't putting anyone up. The platform did, however, refer us to the response posted on its X safety account. James hinted at it a moment ago. It reads as follows: we take action against illegal content on X, including child sexual abuse material, by removing it, permanently suspending accounts, and working with local governments and law enforcement as necessary. Anyone using or prompting Grok to make illegal content will suffer the same consequences as if they upload illegal content.
I'm sure they don't actually do that.
Approached Elon Musk and XAI, Musk's AI startup, which developed Grok, for an interview or a statement, and we've not heard back from Mr.
Yep,
Musk's
they suspended
team,
me
but
back in
XAI
2008 for no
sent
reason, just because I'm a
possibly
leftist.
Automated reply, which reads simply, legacy media lies. It's now just over a week since the devastating fire at La Constellation bar in Crans-Montana in Switzerland in the early hours of New Year's Day. Half of the 40 people who died were teenagers. A further 116 people were injured, many of them seriously. On Friday, Swiss prosecutors took one of the two owners of the bar into custody. On the day, families, the emergency services and politicians gathered to pay their last respects. The BBC's Sarah Rainsford reports.
In Crans-Montana today, all the churches rang their bells in memory of the dead. And in streets thick with snow, hundreds of people stood in silence. Some of them hugged and some cried. They all mourned the 40 young people who died celebrating New Year when a fire tore through their bar. Some of those who made it out were at a memorial service for their friends who didn't survive. Many of them were just teenagers. 6 boys who died were on one football team.
Les images qui nous font face sont insoutenables.
Marie was near Le Constellation bar that night, and she helped people running from the flames. At today's ceremony, she called what she'd seen unbearable. She says she'll never forget.
Nous ne pourrons l'oublier.
Listening to her were the presidents of France and Italy, whose own citizens were killed and injured in the fire. More than a week on, Le Constellation is still sealed off behind white plastic. But what unfolded inside has since become clearer, and it is the story of a disaster that should never have happened. Because mobile phone footage from that night shows the fire being started by sparklers that touch the ceiling. It spreads fast because of foam added for soundproofing that was never checked for fire safety. But this other video has also emerged from 6 years ago, and it shows the risk was well known. A man's voice tells people with sparklers, watch out for the foam.
It is very clear.
Gian Lorenzo Coronado is Italy's ambassador to Switzerland, and when we spoke by phone, he told me multiple rules had been broken.
It was a hell inside this bar. More than 1,000 degrees of temperature. So there was no way to escape. Italy wants justice. The Italian government wants justice, and the Italian people want justice. That's for sure. And the families want justice.
Volete chiedere scusa? Volete chiedere scusa?
This morning, the couple who own the bar were called in for questioning, suspected of causing death through negligence. A few hours later, Jacques Moretti was taken into custody, which is something the victims' families had wanted from the start. His wife, Jessica, then made her first public comments.
This is an unimaginable tragedy, and it happened in our bar. My thoughts are constantly with the victims. I want to apologize.
Je tiens à m'excuser. I'm just walking down the winding street through the centre of Crans-Montana now, and either side of me, all of the very smart shops, jewellery, watches, all of them closed for this day of mourning. There's a bank, and there's a poster in the window with a black crossed ribbon, and it says all of our thoughts are with those affected by this tragedy. This is a small place, and a disaster, what's happened here, so huge. Everyone's affected.
You're going to need to turn on Trump.
Today, that community came together in its suffering.
You're going to have to seek out
Many
Jesus and
brought
turn on the
flowers tied to a
Antichrist
glowing
Trump.
heap piled on trestle tables. Some of them just stood and gazed towards the ruins of the bar. People here have so many questions, not just for the bar's owners,
Or in your
but
case,
for
seek
local
out the goddess
authorities who failed to inspect the place
and turn
for
on
5
Antichrist
years
Trump.
and can't say why. And even on this day of mourning, they talked of their anger and of their need for answers.
Trump's the Antichrist.
Sarah Rainsford.
Everybody who knows knows it.
Now, this month marks 30
You shouldn't
years
care.
of Young
Aren't you
Voices,
LARPing
the
as a
world's
Jew?
largest series of school choir concerts, which began with just a few thousand children and now involves
Okay.
more than 3 million young singers, including pupils in UK primary schools. Sophie Van Bruggen has been following the journey of pupils from Chetwynd Primary School in the city of Nottingham.
So we're going to do a little warm-up. We'll sing one of the songs, Power in Me, that we know a little bit already, don't we?
It's October, and the children at Chetwynd Primary Academy have work to do.
And then we're going to have a try at the pop medley. What do you think?
In just 9 weeks, they'll be performing in front of thousands of people at Birmingham Arena, joining what's become the world's biggest choir.
Your turn.
The first rehearsal is off to a good start.
You know that chemical that you release that makes you super happy when you dance? I think it might release the same chemical if you're that happy at singing. It's helped me be confident in singing in front of loads of people.
I'd be a bit more scared, so it's kind of helped me in life, not just in my voice.
The grown-ups involved find it inspiring and fulfilling too.
This huge element of just joy.
Shannon Bailey is one of the teachers at Chetwynd Primary.
The immense amount of fun that you have, it isn't just, right, we've got to learn these words and we've got to move the dance moves. Like, We do a lot of sign language as well, so it's so inclusive for everybody. And when you hit concert day and you're in that arena, you are Young Voices family, and it's so divine.
Young Voices is now going into its 30th year. The first concert took place in Dublin in 1996. The idea to introduce live music and performing to children in a way that had never been done before. Over the years, more than 51,000 school choirs have taken part in a concept that's gone global in countries like the USA, South Africa, and most of Europe, involving millions of children worldwide.
Every place that you go has a different culture, has a different feel, but at the core of it, that same electricity exists.
This is Ben Lewis, head of Young Voices.
If you're thinking about, if you're 9 or 10 years old, what's the greatest way to introduce you to live music? Experiencing it, being a part of something, and a huge choir is such a great vehicle for that. And I think it gives so much in so many areas that my job is to really share it with as many children and as many families and communities around the world as possible.
At last, the big day has arrived, and it doesn't disappoint. Made all the more exciting by the arrival of a special guest.
Good luck.
Yolanda Brown is a world-renowned musician. She's performed with thousands of children at Young Voices concerts over the years.
Are you excited? So to be connected in this way, in a live performance way, it's a show. Things might go right, things might go wrong, but we're in it together. Empathy, teamwork, life skills, understanding, learning new cultures, it's all there in music education.
The children put in the hard work, and they've got so much out of it.
I'm enjoying how it's in such a big group, and I just can't get over the fact I'm standing in front of all those people. It's just been a great experience.
Sophie van Bruggen with the young choristers of Chetwynd Primary School in the city of Nottingham in the English Midlands. You're with Weekend from the BBC World Service. In a moment, my two guests
Hello.
are joining
Probably
me
shutting it
before
down.
the latest
It's
international
cold.
news headlines.
I guess we'll hear the news headlines. We'll come on in a minute. Hear how they report on ICE domestic terrorists killing American hero, martyr,
The BBC
Renee
World
Nicole
Service
Good.
connects audiences to the world, from international news to science,
I will.
sports,
Doctor
arts,
Who,
and
thank
culture
you.
programming. BBC World Service offers listeners a global perspective. Distribution of the BBC World Service in the U.S. is made possible by American Public Media.
I still blow
APM
bubbles.
produces and distributes programs that inform and inspire, entertain, and engage audiences everywhere.
Hi, I'm Seth Kent, and I donated a van to CPR. It was really easy. All we needed was the title and keys, and it was great to be able to make a larger donation like that. We're Evergreen members, but at nowhere near that level.
Michael Jackson's Monkey.
It will take us years to match that, but it feels really great to be able to give a really significant donation to CPR, and it feels like it's put to good use, so that's good too.
Were you going to make a joke about Donna Kupatinsky blowing Ghislaine Maxwell's horse, Bubba? Are we going to make a joke about Donna
GMT, this
Kupatinsky
is
blowing Bill
Weekend
Clinton?
From the BBC World Service, still to come, a Venezuelan writer reflects on the capture of Nicolas Maduro and where it leaves his country. And we mark 10 years since the death of the singer-songwriter David Bowie. That's all here on Weekend with me, Julia Morica, after a summary of world news.
BBC News with Chris Barrow. Defying the authorities in Iran, there's been another night of anti-government protests, with people taking to the streets of Tehran and other cities. There are also reports of further violent repression. One doctor said he treated many protesters with gunshot wounds. Iran has accused the United States of fomenting the unrest, a claim Washington said was ridiculous. President Trump has repeated his threat to take over Greenland, saying the United States must own the Arctic islands to prevent Russia or China taking control.
He's in
Greenland
league
is
with
the
Russia and
semi-autonomous
China.
territory of Denmark, which has called Mr. Trump's demands unacceptable.
Thanks.
Donald Trump has also
We're
met
on your side,
international oil
EU.
executives to discuss plans to develop Venezuela's huge energy reserves, a week after US forces removed Nicolas Maduro from power. The US president wants oil companies to invest $100 billion in the country.
You're not trying to escape that curse very much, are you?
Emerged of the incident in which a woman was shot dead by a US immigration officer in Minneapolis. It was filmed by the agent who fired the fatal shots, killing Renee Nicole Good as she tried to drive away. The authorities in Australia have declared a disaster in the southeast of the country, where bushfires have destroyed houses and caused power failures.
That's the BBC.
Thousands of firefighters have been deployed to Victoria. NASA says it's preparing to bring 4 astronauts back from the International Space Station as soon as Thursday because one of them has a medical concern.
I heard they were evacuating the whole station
in eastern China has been scaffolded and had its cross removed as part of a broader crackdown on unregistered churches. Human Rights Watch says about 100 members of the Yeyang Church were detained in December. 24 remain in custody. Today marks 80 years since the first meeting of the United Nations General Assembly that was held in London.
Your God is fake. He lets you
BBC
fall for
News.
Trump. He lets you fall for the Antichrist, Trump. Your God is fake. We proved your God is fake. Your God didn't stop your people from committing genocide.
The program, I'll have 2 guests.
Your God is
with me
fake
to
as
offer their
fuck.
Perspectives on the news and the talking points of the day. James Rogers is here, reader in international
We proved one God
journalism,
is
City
fake,
University
the God
in
of
London,
Zionists.
and a specialist on Russia and the former Soviet Union. He's got a new book out this month, The Return of Russia, which we will talk about a little later. James, welcome.
Thank you, Julian. Good morning.
In a moment, we're going to be joined by Gaia Vince as well, who is a science writer and author. She is on her way to the studio.
See y'all later.
Speak. So, James,
Or
a little
hopefully
bit more
not.
from you. People who've
If
heard
you're a
this
MAGA.
program in the past will
Hopefully
be
never see
aware
you
of
again.
your,
Hopefully no one ever sees you again,
specialism
MAGA
of
trash.
Russia and everything relating to the Soviet Union. What drew you there in the first place?
The fact that I was fascinated by Russian. I mean, I was lucky enough to get
I've always had a lot of bots in
chat.
chat.
At a time when, honestly, it wasn't a particularly great career option. Probably
Less
the only
now
job
than
was
usually,
to
actually.
It was espionage, and I was never invited to join the intelligence services. So, but I completely became fascinated by the country and its culture. I'm of a generation that came of age at the end of the Cold War. My career as a journalist began in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and being a Russian speaker then gave me tremendous professional opportunities. So it was a
You
country
betrayed
that
your people by
fascinated
supporting
me
genocide.
throughout my years as a student and thereafter my early years as a journalist and subsequently as a writer. I've just written my second book on the country. And also, you know, that inevitably, Julian, I think there's a sort of personal thing here too. You know, why do you write about something? There's an academic interest, there's journalistic interest, there's historical interest. For me, there was obviously a personal one too, to try to understand why this country, which was opening up 30 years ago, is now all but closed, certainly to the likes of me anyway, I suspect. Very difficult to travel there now, and of course the political relationship between the country of which I'm a citizen, the United Kingdom, and Russia is, I think, probably at its worst stage, really. I mean, you could say that parts of the Cold War were worse, but at least then, I think there was a sort of rules, there was sort of a sort of system, and it's not clear where we are now. You know, my recent work, I've tried to answer the question of what went wrong, how did we get here? You know, that's very simple. You know, what happened, how did we get from 1991 to 2022 and the escalation of Russia's war on Ukraine?
Because there is a
Hello,
genuine
speaker.
curiosity, isn't there, among people who aren't necessarily experts on Russia, maybe have never been there, are aware
Artificial
up to a
stupidity.
point of the recent history. And now,
Nazis
as you
aren't
say,
intelligent.
saying, you know, why has all this changed so much so quickly?
Well, that's actually what I've been trying to answer in my recent work, and I've come to the rather sad
Hello, the
conclusion
speaker of
that
purity.
actually it was by the end of the 1990s, which is largely remembered as a decade, you know, after the end of the Cold War, tremendous relief across Europe and the rest of the world. But I think it was actually in that decade that
Sorry about the
relationship
Nazis
began
in
to go
chat.
wrong. And I think by the end of that decade, which is remembered now as a time of very harmonious and progressive relationships between Russia and the West, I think the seeds of the current confrontation were actually sown there. Now, the nature and the way that confrontation would unfold and the form it would take was not determined by then. But I think Western policymakers underestimated this humiliation that Russia felt. And I think that's the best word I can find to describe it. And I think Vladimir Putin, who probably sensed that himself, having served in the Russian Soviet security services in Germany, I think he sensed that himself, and I think he understood that very well and positioned himself to speak to the Russian electorate in a way that they very well understood.
The Middle East has also been on your watch over many years as well. It's not as if you take us to straightforward places around.
No,
Sorry about that,
worked,
Doctor Who.
I lived and worked in Gaza for 2 years as the BBC's correspondent there, but I mean more than 20 years ago now. But that was really a fascinating experience professionally, and life then was extremely hard for Palestinians then. But of course, now it's unimaginably more so the way that things have unfolded in the last sort of 2.5 years. So, yes, I suppose in my career as a journalist and author, I've had an opportunity to see, 2 of those places which are really dominating.
Don't worry about them.
Headlines now, but also,
They don't matter.
As a citizen, of how very
They're the
hard it is to
lives that
travel to
don't matter.
places now in a way that it wasn't for me earlier in my journalistic career.
James Rogers with me throughout the programme. In a moment, I'll introduce you to Gaia Vince, who, as I say, is on her way to the studio. We will resume our conversations, though, by talking about the developments following the American seizure.
They're the lives
of
that don't matter.
Venezuelan President
These
Nicolas
Nazis, yeah.
Maduro. A small number of opposition
Maniac knows they're
politicians have
Nazis.
been released from prison in the country. Among them, senior figures Enrique Marquez and Biagio Pilieri. These have been welcomed by the opposition leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado.
Just because you're too stupid to know you're Nazis doesn't mean we don't know you're Nazis.
Promised by the authorities. Meanwhile, President Trump has met international
Denying
oil
these are Nazis
executives
just
to
makes you a
discuss
Nazi.
plans to develop Venezuela's huge energy reserves. He says he wants oil companies to invest $100 billion in the country. And that chimes to an extent with observations made by Colombia's President Gustavo Petro, who has told the BBC he believes there's a real threat of US military action in his country.
Yeah, you need to fight back.
Of Nicolas Maduro,
And we need to do our part
Trump did say
here.
the prospect
Ukraine's
of a
doing the
military
most to
operation
stop,
in neighboring
to
Colombia,
save
quote,
USA from Trump and
sounded
Putin.
good, although the two leaders have since spoken about planning a meeting in the White House. Well, this was President Petro's take on the crisis in Venezuela.
Everybody who gloats about fascists killing an innocent woman, they're a Nazi.
It seems to me that there's a problem in the United States that dates back decades.
That's all y'all have done since you got here.
That the United States
You can't tell that's a
has held
Nazi.
regarding
You're a
its
Nazi.
international relations under various administrations.
Yeah, you're a Nazi,
It
like
sees
Netanyahu.
them as an empire without
And I'm
regard
cursing you,
for
I'm
the
cursing
rights of
Netanyahu
nations,
through you.
especially those of
I'm
Latin
double
America.
cursing you. You
As
wanted the
long as
curse
the
taken
United
away?
States
I'm
economy
triple
is based
fucking
on
cursing you.
oil
I'm
and
cursing
coal,
Netanyahu
we
through
will
you.
tend to seek wars over oil and coal. The Venezuelan issue is about this. In my opinion,
Well, and they want to
if
make
the United
concentration camps in
States and its
Venezuela like Germany
policies
did in
were
Poland.
aligned with the Paris Agreement, that is, if they were to completely replace that 70% of its energy with clean energy, there would be no wars.
Well, Vincente,
You're going down with the ones who did.
Venezuelan writer and author of
You got
I
yourself
Killed
cursed,
Simon
you got Netanyahu
Bolivar.
cursed, and
Vincente,
your whole
welcome
Nazi
to the
network.
program. Good morning.
Thanks for having me.
I wonder how you reflect
But I'm gonna shut it
on
down.
the events in Venezuela of the last week.
This is interesting.
They are very complicated, and they are, I would say, even catastrophic when you describe them inside of the recent history of Venezuela. During the beginnings of this century, we started having this discourse according to which the United States were not interventionist anymore.
You
They
didn't
had
say what
moved
an American
away
would
from
say.
These whole, like Condor Plan in Chile and these kind of interventions that they used to have in our continent.
Dude, Crowley's a
And we
piece
were
of
under the
shit.
impression that, especially during the Obama years, that they were
Crowley.
going to
You
let
think
us,
reading
just,
Crowley's gonna protect
fade
you?
away into
You got cursed
socialism
by a
and use
real
it
one,
as
bitch.
an example and say this is why you don't do this because you're going to wind up as
Slybuster, cursing you,
So
cursing
the
your
image-
terrorist
the
network,
image of the
cursing
United
Trump and
States
Putin
had been a
Netanyahu
little
through
bit,
you, cursing
reestablished
Crowley through
inside
you.
of
Sorry,
Venezuela.
fuck.
And that's why you could have actors like Maria Corina Machado, who's very close to the United States, and not be impacted.
See, you're
by this
gloating
image
about
of
it, like a
being
dumbass
ghost
fucking
in the
Nazi.
United States,
Just because you
now
LARP
we're
as a
the
Jew
good
doesn't
guys
make you
and
not a
we're going to
Nazi.
intervene. With what they just done, this image has been completely shattered, and it will move the Latin American left to a radical position in the times to come. The violence, the humiliation of the event, and just the rashness of it all. And this is, I'm not saying that I think Maduro should have stayed in power. Let's be clear about that. Maduro was a horrible dictator, and we're all very happy
What did
to
he
see
do
him
wrong?
leave. But the way in which this was done is going to create a lasting image on the psyche of the Latin American left that will probably radicalize the movement, and it's going to be very difficult for us to bring them into
Just like he's radicalizing everybody to the left here in America. We're going to
The
win.
Latin American left. So you're broadening it
Keep
way
calling
beyond
us
Venezuela,
terrorists.
which clearly
When
makes
you're the
sense
domestic
you
terrorists,
already
we're
hear
going to win.
references to countries like Cuba and Colombia in this context. But this notion of radicalizing the Latin American left and how that might look What are you thinking on that at the moment?
I'm thinking, I come from a long tradition of leftist activism in Latin America. I still consider myself to be a little bit on the left. So when I grew up, I was steeped deep in these stories of how the United States had trampled us, and the whole Eduardo Galeano kind of ideas, and the poor little Allende getting shot by the United States, and Arbenz getting hit, and this and the other thing. And the images were very strong. Of course, then you grow up and then you make up your own political mind, and you may move away from that.
You let fascists infect your brain.
The image of having Nicolas
Hopefully
Maduro
move away from
humiliated
knowing
and
the
being
truth
shuffled
about
around
American intervention
New
in South
York,
America.
and the
I don't know if I can listen to this
United
fascist.
States, and all the contradictions that are obvious in this action and not acting in other places is going to create a
why don't you kidnap Putin?
America. The
Why don't
only
you kidnap
way this
Netanyahu?
can have a positive
Why didn't they kidnap
outcome
Trump?
is if everything that the United States promises pans out.
Yeah,
If
Tim
we
Walz
do
is going to
bring
defeat ICE in
broad
Minnesota.
democracy to Venezuela,
National
freedom
Guard's going
and
to
the
kick
likes,
ICE's
then
ass.
people will probably
They got
be able to
Blackhawks,
say what is the
bitch.
thing.
And there's still time for that to happen, isn't there?
There is, but if you know that the history of Venezuela and the history of the Bolivarian
Locked and loaded
Revolution,
for
they're
terrorists.
very good at negotiating. This is not the first time we've had a difference that have
From a
passed through
Blackhawk.
negotiation tables, like in the Dominican Republic. And
Oh, y'all don't know
Mexico,
what that is. You're not
Colombia.
American.
And every time they're very
dumb
good at giving you token
Nazis.
things and then taking them away. This is not the first time through dialogue.
It sounds
that
like all
have-
we did was
have
America
managed to get
sanction
political
Venezuela
prisoners
into a
freed.
crisis
And
and
what
then
has
kidnap their
happened in the
president
past is that they
in
wind
order
up
to do the
jail
same
2
thing to
months
Cuba.
later, when the world moves on and the pressure is off the
Yeah, I'm going to curse you, Bob.
dictatorship.
I'm cursing you, and I'm
James, by
cursing
all means, come
you
in with
and
a
Trump
a
and
thought or
Putin
a
and
question, and we
Netanyahu
can
through
broaden the
you.
conversation. And I should say, Guy Vince.
You
is
spoke
now
up in the
joining us.
wrong
Welcome,
live, you
Guy.
dumb
Very glad to
bitch.
see you.
Oh, it's great to be here, and huge apologies for
No, don't
running a
worry.
little late.
I will introduce you more broadly in a moment.
Don't worry, you
James,
got
come in with
cursed.
with a thought.
You got
Yes, thank
Trump
you
and
very much.
Putin and
I mean,
Netanyahu
it's
further
fascinating to hear
cursed through
your
you,
reflections, Vicente. I
through
mean, I
your
wanted to
terrorist
ask,
network.
I was actually, while I was waiting to come to the studio, reading an interview with the former director of the CIA.
Yeah, we've been sanctioning.
William Burns, who's talking about this.
We destroyed their economy in order to do this, just like we're trying to do to Cuba now.
Of the United States, he says our
fuck
record
you.
on regime change
Nobody's
is
gonna
not
take me.
exactly pristine. Now I wonder how it sort of feels.
I got the
mean,
goddess
because
on my
obviously
side. I got
comparisons
Jesus on
can
my
draw
side.
with
Y'all
Iraq.
don't got
I mean,
shit.
but
You got
how-
Trump and
the way
Putin and
that turned out
Netanyahu,
20
fucking
years or so
Antichrist.
ago. But how does it feel for you looking on as a Venezuelan living outside
You got the
country?
spirit
How
of
do
the
you see
mustache
sort of
man on
the
your side.
future
That's all the
in-
fuck
in
you
the
got.
next 3-5 years?
Yes, well, what is
You
very
got
frustrating for
Blackhawks
Venezuela,
flying
especially
over
Venezuelans that
your
are
ICE
fighting for
agents.
liberty, is
They're
all this
toast,
talk
dude.
about petrol.
I'm gonna take those fuckers out. Take those terrorists out. Take you terrorists out too. Don't think we're gonna stop it. The ones on the streets, we'll come to your house.
On other issues that would move forward the events in Venezuela. The amount of political prisoners that have
When you get
been
annoyed,
being
you
freed
give loose to the
till today
archons.
is
That's the
less
goal.
than 1%
They
of the
harvest your low
political
energy,
prisoners
which
that
is
we have
between
in
20 and 80.
Venezuela.
Get the
It's
vibe above
nothing.
100 hertz at
And
least.
there are
I
political
sick them on the
prisoners that are
Nazis in
appearing that
chat.
we didn't even know about,
I just
who are
channel
people
them
who
to the
had been
Nazis in chat by
disappeared,
cursing them
who
and
are now
cursing Trump and
appearing
Putin and
and they're
Netanyahu
being
through them.
counted
Thanks for the
too.
advice.
So that on the one hand, on the second hand, we
Entropic.
don't see any kind of reform of the Chavista system, which is an
While we're down here, I'm
institutionalized
cursing
form
these
of oppression
motherfuckers.
and repression that works
I don't
in a
have to
very
come over. I already
specific way with
cursed you.
plans that are attached to the government, and what we want to see is that being dismantled.
See them talking
So
about, you
Venezuelans
probably
will not
think
consider
Jeffrey
that
Epstein was a
anything
bad
has been
guy.
done
They're just
to,
Nazi
improve
pedos.
our country, as long as there are 3 things that are not done.
I'll shut it down.
The first one is the freeing of all the political prisoners. The second one is being able to go back to the country for the people that are outside of Venezuela, like me. We can't go back. And the third one is getting back our judicial system and